You're listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast. As always, a member of the CLNS group of podcasts. Make sure you download and subscribe to all of those great podcasts to get great Patriots content. Tonight, it is me, Pat Lane, with my guy Matt St. Jean, and we are here continuing our 21 game recap of the 21 game streak. And we are into the 2003 AFC playoffs. We're going to be talking about both AFC playoff games. Kind of worked out really nice that we get both playoff games right here. Man, these are two games that I was at, that I remember very vividly, that I celebrated quite a bit. We had a lot of fun in these two games. So I'm looking forward to reliving that with you all here tonight.
Yeah, this is going to be a really fun one, and I think the best way to go about this is going to be to walk through the playoffs kind of game by game, when we're given the context too, because especially when we're doing the series in the regular season, the context is other games that you happen to watch that Sunday. When you get to the playoffs, it's a whole different beast. Fewer games, more luck than do them, and I gotta say, going through the games that happened in the playoffs in 2003, there are some iconic moments. I didn't realize all happened in this one playoff run.
Yeah.
Outside of the Patriots, some of these other games that happened are ones that I know about and you hear about. You just don't realize they're part of that run. I think without further ado, we'll just get into it.
Let's do it. Do you want to?
We'll start with the wild card round. Walk through those games real quick.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. The 5v4 game, the first one, Titans at Ravens. Titans end up taking this one. As we all know, they end up coming into New England the following week on a Gary Anderson 46-yard field goal. Very close game with the Ravens. Was really only this close because Steve McNair throws a pick six in the first quarter.
Yeah.
This is the Anthony Wright-led Ravens team with Jamal Lewis. They completely shut down. Titans defense shuts down Jamal Lewis. And if not for that pick six, they probably take this one relatively comfortably. It comes down to the end and they take that one. The other Saturday night game was Cowboys at Panthers. We've actually kind of talked about this during the show. Not an entertaining game. That came to Carolina. I think that's 6-3, I believe. And I actually let me double check that. But Panthers just completely run them out of the building. That one, that's 6-3.
Can I say one thing about the Carolina Panthers?
Go for it.
The wildest. You want to win some money at trivia.
Mm-hmm.
The Carolina Panthers played four postseason games in 2003. They scored 29 points exactly in 3 out of the 4 games. They win 29-10 here. They win 29-23 the next week against the Rams, which is an incredible game.
Yeah. They
beat the Eagles 14-3 in the NFC Championship game, and of course they lose 32-29 to the Patriots. The weirdest, 29 points. How hard is it to score 29 points? They do it 3 games out of 4. It's insane.
And I think I'm going to guess they do it differently in all of them.
You would imagine. Well, in the St. Louis game, they score a touchdown in overtime. And so one, that's why they end up at 29 instead of 30.
That one and then the Patriots one, they go for 2 twice and miss both of them. So, those two involve getting a touchdown.
I don't get it. The Panthers, it looks like, how the heck did they get 29 here? Oh, a bunch of field goals. That's how they got 29 here.
Well, that's kind of how you have to do it. All of these involve getting a 6 instead of a 7 in there somewhere, whether it's with a ton of field goals or missing on 2-point conversions, or it's overtime, so you don't have to kick.
Right.
That's
John Casey kicked 5 field goals in that Cowboys game.
Yeah, which is something we're going to talk about. A kicker kicking 5 field goals in a couple minutes.
Yep.
Yeah. We jump ahead to Sunday of the wild card round. Seahawks at Packers. Packers take this 33-27. This is the we want the ball and we're going to score game for anyone who knows this. The teams trade rushing touchdowns. Amon Green and Sean Alexander in the final 3 minutes of regulation. Go to overtime. Seahawks win the coin toss and get the ball. And Matt Hasselbeck, Seahawks quarterback, is captured on the hot mic there saying, we want the ball and we're going to score. Seahawks go 3 and out. Packers don't do anything with the ball, so the Seahawks get the ball back. They get 1 first down, and then Matt Hasselbeck throws a pick six to out 52-yard pick six there. So the Packers moving on. And then the final wild card game, Broncos at Colts. Talked about how the Broncos beat the Colts in the regular season. That does not happen here. Colts do not punt in this game. They score on their first 7 possessions, and then in the fourth quarter, when the game's out of hand, 1 possession ends on a fumble, the other one's a turnover on downs. So yeah, just in, and it's as we get into the divisional round and the conference championship, the Colts punting situation is something that will become a factor.
Yes, it is.
That's the wild card. That sets up a divisional round. Panthers.
By the way, I'm sorry. Zero Stroke here says Big Ben and Manning go down. You actually have the wrong playoffs there. Zero Stroke. That's interestingly enough. So
that's a year later. We're in January of 2004.
Yes.
You're thinking January 2005 there. Big Ben would have just finished his season for Miami, Ohio.
That's true.
Yes. As we get into the divisional round, the Saturday games, it's going to be Panthers at Rams, Titans at Patriots. The Sunday games, Colts at Chiefs, and Packers at Eagles. I think we got to start with this Panthers-Rams game because this game ends, like, they show the clip of the ending kind of at the first break in the Patriots-Titans game. This goes to overtime in St. Louis and in double overtime. Was it the second play of double overtime? Jake Delhomme finds Steve Smith for a 69-yard walk-off touchdown pass.
Yeah, which you almost never see that happen. It's just in, like, I don't know if I've ever seen another game do that, where you get to the 5th quarter, right, and no one's able to score. And then it's like they just kept going, right, which is interesting because you kind of initially think, like, in hockey, where if overtime ends, you start, you end the period, and then you go to the next one. And it's like, it's just like first quarter all over again. You just keep going. And so that's really fascinating because that obviously plays into the fact that, he, Jake Delhomme hits Steve Smith, by the way, after an interception. The Rams are driving. They're inside. Well, they're not really in field goal range, but they have 1st and 10 at the Carolina, like 40. You have a feeling like they're going to get here and they're going to be able to at least kick a field goal. And Bolger throws a pick. And, and then 3 plays later, Jake Delhomme hits Steve Smith on a 69-yard touchdown pass, like you said. So just an incredible ending.
Well, and you back up a little bit here. First of all, both teams miss field goals in overtime.
Yeah.
45-yarder and a 53-yarder. And I believe it was a late Rams comeback. Yeah, the Panthers are up 23-12 late in the 4th quarter, and it takes a Marshall Faulk touchdown with 2.5 minutes left, a 2-point conversion, and then a field goal with no time left on the clock just to send it to overtime.
Yeah, and an onside kicker in there as well. So this is something like we talked about, last week we were talking about the Vikings losing and being knocked out of the playoffs the same exact way. Of course, they lost that game on the onside kick, but in this case, the Rams have to do both of those, and so that it's wild.
Yeah, all-time great game there. I believe X-Clown is the name of the play in overtime. Steve Smith has talked about that. Because he's the X receiver and Clown is the route, like a clown post to the corner post that he beats him on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Which, by the way, the Panthers missed another field goal in the 4th quarter that would have made the game 26-12. Would have been 2 touchdowns. You kind of feel pretty good about it at that point. And that, was not to be, of course. But
also, I think before we get into it, the scoring for the 4th quarter, field goal, offensive fumble recovery in the end zone. Field goal, field goal, field goal, field goal, field goal. Just
It's crazy.
There is not a regular touchdown in this game until the fourth quarter.
Nope.
After talk, I think I have to go watch this full game at some point between now and when the season starts, because that seems crazy. By the way, speaking of the Cardinals-Vikings game, we talked about this last week, week 17-03. I went back and I found that game and I queued it up with about 7 minutes left and watched the ending the other night because I wanted to hear how the broadcast was talking about it. And watching them, like, they are fully talking about how the Cardinals coach is about to get fired. And they are moved on from that game and talking about stuff. And then obviously they come all the way back and win it. Crazy. And the other implication we didn't talk about with that, if the Cardinals lose that game, they have the number 1 overall pick and they'll draft the Eli Manning.
This is wild to think about.
Yeah. Like, that is, which I got to say, looking at that and talking about this 03 season and how many legacies, like, something about this season was magical. The way it shaped legacies all around the league for, like, the 04 draft and what would happen with all the quarterbacks that came in, because that was a really good draft.
Yeah.
And then legacies for, Brady, Manning, McNair, all in the AFC. Like, this is a monumental year in the league, I think, when you look back at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
pivotal.
So anyways,
that leads us into Gillette.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the Sunday games before, just because we could talk about the other 2 Sunday games?
I think we'll do that at the end because that'll segue us into the
okay. All right,
next round. Yeah. So as that game is wrapping up at the Edward Jones Dome, I believe it was, in St. Louis, between the Panthers and the Rams, it is much colder in New England. It is 4 degrees at kickoff with a wind chill of -10. I vividly remember in the 3 games to glory, one of those DVDs, them showing the thermometer frozen on the sideline. It was stuck there. The Patriots faced the Titans when they played in the regular season. Pats win 38-30. I do think it's worth, before we even talk about the game, talking about the fan angle on this, because the first time these 2 teams play, Patriots-Titans is the back burner game in Boston that day because the Red Sox are in the playoffs and the Patriots are a middling team that happened to win the Super Bowl a couple years ago. And they might be good. And it's a fun game. It's a competitive game. The focus is in Fenway.
Right.
Now,
the first game of the streak. Like that's what's kind of cool about that, is that it's the first game of the streak.
Yeah. Now, Steve McNair is co-MVP here. And, it's 4 degrees with a wind chill of -10. And that place is packed with fans because now this is the top attraction in Boston.
And the Patriots have won 12 games in a row and
have home field advantage in the playoffs. So you win, you're coming back the next week.
And I remember going into that game, and I mean, this is the coldest game in the history of Gillette Stadium. I believe is the coldest game in Patriots history as well. Home game for the Patriots. At least wind chill wise. I don't know about actual temperature, but wind chill wise or feel, I guess, wise. But I remember I had like heated socks on, like with the batteries in them and stuff like that. It was wild. We had a million layers on. It was awesome. It was a great experience. I do remember like multiple times they would put on the big jumbotron like the like a fireplace, with fireplace going, and they'd be singing,
pretended
it'd be like the fire, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful, or something like that. Like, it was great. That was a lot of fun. And so that game was an incredible game. And again, leading up to it, you're sitting there thinking, right, you got the co-MVP coming into town. They had just won the last weekend. And so, it was great. It was a ton of fun. And so
this is a Titans team too, in a bigger context, that had been to the Super Bowl, and that was 99.
Yep.
So they had been recently with kind of the same group, same coach. It's McNair and Jeff Fisher there. So it's like, all right, this is them trying to maximize that window. And I believe this ends up being kind of the last hurrah for that group. I don't remember them being all that good in 04.
No, I don't think they were. Jeff Fisher's, notoriously so 500 coach. So I'm fairly certain that they were actually. I can.
Yeah, if you wanna Yeah, while you look that up, one notable thing for the Patriots, Willie McGinnis back in this one. He did not play back in Week 5 when these teams met in October. He's back now, and he's going to have, I think, a very good game when you watch it.
Yep.
But when we talk about this, I want to talk about just the first quarter in isolation here first.
By the way, before you get back into it, the Titans were 5-11 in 04, 4-12 in 05, and 8-8 in 06. They did make the playoffs in 07 and 08.
But that's what leads into that's the Vince Young years. That's changing of the guard there.
Yep.
So this is the last hurrah for this Titans group, which we talk about legacies. This is sleeping their co-MVP, and they ran through basically everybody in the AFC that year except for Peyton Manning and the Colts and Tom Brady and the Patriots.
Yep.
I think they're probably easily the third best team. I think when you look at the big picture,
I think so for sure. Yeah.
But yeah. All right. So the last time we saw these teams, first half was kind of brutal. Second half, both teams are going up and down the field. The track meet. Ton of scoring. Neither defense could get a stop. And to a degree, you kind of end up at a much slower pace with the same thing in the first quarter of this one. So I'll just walk through what happened and we can go through it. But the Titans go 3-and-out on their first possession, getting the ball to start. But Steve McNair misses a wide open Drew Bennett for what would have been a walk-in touchdown. Yeah. Misses him by a foot or two with the ball because the Patriots blow coverage on it. So Titans had an opportunity to start this game with a statement. They miss. Patriots come down the field and score a touchdown. Titans go down and score a touchdown. Patriots come down and miss a field goal in the weather. Then the Titans throw a pick, and the Patriots go down and score another touchdown. And that's how this game opens, with a ton of scoring. We got turnovers, we got action, we got missed field goals. It's all the hits from the Week 5 matchup as these teams are settling in. What were your takeaways from that?
Well, so it's interesting. You kind of look at what was going on there, and the Patriots drive down. They pick up a third down on a pass to Kevin Falk across the middle, and then the next third down, they're at the 41-yard line. The next third down, they come out. Brady doesn't like the look, calls timeout. They come back out of the formation with a totally different personnel package, and they hit Bethel Johnson for a 41-yard touchdown pass. And you're like, okay, this is the way we do it. This is the way it's done. Mm-hmm. The Titans, I think, one of the things about this Titans group is that they were a tough football team, and they really responded well to adversity. So the Patriots score a touchdown, and the Titans drive right down the field and score another touchdown. And they put it on the broadcast. It was the second touchdown allowed by the Patriots in 77 drives at home that year, in the last 77 drives at home, which is insane to think about. And so they had gone 76 drives without allowing a touchdown, with only one touchdown, and then they score this one as well. And really, really awesome. Patriots drive down. Titans, looks like a DPI in the end zone. Adam tries to kick a 44-yard field goal, and
nothing was going that night.
Jesus Christ, dude. He wasn't even close.
No.
He wasn't even close. And I think
you can barely see the ball on the broadcast.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, so the very next play, and this is what the Patriots did. It kind of felt like the Patriots did this all year. But the very next play after the missed field goal, the Patriots pick off McNair. And you're like, okay, here we go again. And then what do the 2003 Patriots do when they get a turnover? They drive down the field and score. That's what they do.
And can we talk about a play on this drive, early in this drive?
I know which one you're going to talk about.
Yeah. Patriots, they lose 3 yards on first down, incompletion on second down. So it's 3rd and 13 after the turnover. And Brady finds Bethel Johnson.
Yep.
And he goes left, and he finds him on the left side, and there's nowhere for him to go. And he runs all the way to the right side of the field, and there's nowhere for him to go. And he comes all the way back to the left side of the field, and he's able to almost get the corner, but there is one Titan there, I believe Lance Schulters, and
25, yeah, I believe
30. It's either Tank Williams who's 25 or 31 who is Lance Schulters.
I don't. Yeah.
And there's one Titan there, and Tom Brady in these weather conditions lays out his body for a block, and that's just enough for Bethel Johnson to get the corner, and then he gets 14 yards when they needed 13 on the run, which, I mean, who would have expected that we were talking about this going in as this becomes the Bethel Johnson game?
It does.
In the first quarter. 2 huge plays with a touchdown, and then that to keep them alive to drive down the field for an Antoine Smith touchdown.
Well, and then Brady scrambles for a first down on 3rd and 3. And it's like, how many times did Brady do that? Like almost never, it felt like. And so,
and that was that the one where he's diving for the
out and he's like pump fakes like 17 times and then dives for the first down.
The slow-mo shot of that in the DVD as a kid was like the coolest thing ever. To see him on the run and making that happen, which he's a little banged up after that one, and I can imagine because that grass must have felt like concrete.
I would imagine.
He gets slammed by, I think it's Keith Bullock, Kevin Carter. All these Titans players are huge. Someone just landed on him as he's going out of bounds, just gets the first, which again, a theme we've talked about all year. It's Tom Brady's legs moving the chains.
Yep.
Like it's something I did not expect to see when we went through this, how often we're talking about Brady's legs.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And so then the Titans, and this is, again, the Titans do this again, where they're driving down the field again. Patriots have scored. Now they're up 14-7. And it's like, all right, the Titans are driving down the field again. And you're just like, man, they're doing it again. They're going down. McNair takes a sack. McNair has a wide open Derek Mason for a touchdown, like wide open, and just flat out misses him. And so, and they end up not even attempting a long field goal. They take the 5-yard penalty. They don't even actually line up. They just stand around and take the 5-yard penalty, move back 5 yards, and then punt.
Opting to punt. So the 5-yard penalty moves them back to the 33, but they're deciding to punt from the New England 28.
Correct. Yeah. And they just say, like, there's no way we're going to hit a 45-yard field goal, which I don't necessarily blame them for thinking that. No. But they're just like, we're not even going to try it. And so the Patriots don't really move the ball a ton. And then the Titans are driving again. They line up for a field goal, and Richard Seymour just busts through between the long snapper and the guard and blocks the field goal. And interestingly enough, the Titans were called for a penalty on the play anyways, like a personal foul hit to the face or something like that. I've never seen that called before. I guess it was illegal hands to the face, but maybe it was more egregious than that. I'm not really sure. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, blocked by Seymour, recovered by the Titans, where the Patriots get the ball back.
And I think you look back at this, I think that's probably one of the biggest plays of the game. The fact they're able to get a block there on special teams. A tough day for special teams all around for both teams and the weather conditions.
Right.
And that ends up being a decisive play in this ball game. The fact you're able to block a kick. I do want to go back a little bit here, too, just to mention a couple names on the Titans. Eddie George was banged up for them. He got banged up the week before. So Chris Brown was their backup running back, like their change of pace guy. And he's in here a lot. He was the one that scored the first touchdown.
Yeah, he had a nice game.
He looked fast. I think he was one of the few players on this field that's rock solid, that was actually able to get some footing, get some speed. So he was dangerous for them all game long. And then Derek Mason, who I feel like he always popped up against the pass for different teams. He was really good. Like on that drive, he has a 29-yard catch. On the drive before, he has 10-yard, 12-yard, 6-yard catches. He was just all over the field that day. Really, really solid football player.
Yeah, I mean, he ends up with 7 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown. And Drew Bennett had 3 for 48, but Drew Bennett had 2 big catches on the last drive, which we'll talk about. Had 2 big catches on the last drive.
Bennett is the main character in this game.
Yes, but, he doesn't really do anything until that point. And Mason really is the guy that carries them. And it's interestingly enough, Mason plays against them again with the Ravens. And so
that was, what do you call it? The first Patriots game I ever went to was, I believe, the game where Derek Mason dislocated his shoulder during it and played through it because he kept popping it back in. Yeah, it was 2009.
And there was one game. What the heck game? I'm trying to think of what year it was.
There's definitely the one where he was talking to Belichick and trash talking him?
Yes, but there's also a game where they had him open and he dropped it at like the 5-yard line. I forget. I can't remember what game
that's the 2009 game. The one
That's
I
the
was
09 game. Okay.
Yeah,
That's what I
because that
thought.
was the Pats were up 27-21 in that one. The Ravens were driving late with rookie Joe Flacco or second year Joe Flacco to try to tie it or to
Yep.
take the lead. And I believe it was Mason dropped a wide open pass on fourth down that would have moved the
Yeah.
chains.
Okay. It was killing me. I'm like, I feel like that happened, but then I'm like, I thought it was a playoff game, but obviously it wasn't.
They got the Ravens in the playoffs later that year.
Right.
And we don't have to talk about that game.
No, we do not. So anyway, Seymour blocks the kick. Now it's still 14-7. We go into halftime at 14-7. Patriots can't do anything with the ball. Patriots get the ball to start the second half, and they pick up a first down, and then they get stopped. Ken Walter with just a crisp 24-yard punt.
And it was, in his defense, no one, the ball's frozen solid, so no one can kick, but you don't want to punt that's only 24 yards.
Not great, Bob. He was not good. And Tennessee responds by driving down the field and scoring another touchdown.
Another familiar name in the sequence too. The big play on that drive, 30-yard pass to Tyrone Calico. Someone who, I think had already passed what ended up being the peak of his career at this point, which was that stretch early that year. Where he went off against the Patriots.
It's funny, the peak of his career, but it was like his career lasted like one season.
Well, he was in the league for a little bit, but he had a career high 92 yards each in back-to-back weeks. The Patriots game and the week after early that year, and that's 5-6 games in his into his NFL career, and he never found that again.
Yeah.
It is kind of funny we talked about, Tyrone Calico making a big play. Bethel Johnson with the best year he had in his career too, making big plays in this one. Funny how that happens with a couple rookie receivers showing up in this one. It's definitely interesting. And it's one of those interesting things. So the Patriots get the ball the next drive and fumble, and you're just like, man, it's just so frustrating. And one of the funny things, and we were talking about this off air, but one of the funny things for me to kind of go back and watch this, you mentioned Bethel Johnson. I think I have a much higher opinion about Bethel Johnson after watching these games in 2003 than I remember. Of course, he doesn't do anything the rest of his career, right? And he never really becomes a guy that we thought he could be. But he was an important part of that 2003 team, right? He had a lot of big returns. He had some big catches even. So he was a big part of that. And one guy, and he has the fumble here, is Daniel Graham. My God, Daniel Graham sucked. He sucked so bad. Some real rough moments that.
It was just like, my God. And he fumbles here on a weird little screen pass where he picks up no yardage and he's going down and he fumbles and you're just like, what the hell? It just sucks. And that's so anyway. So he fumbles there.
And I want to zoom out here for a second on this too. I think at this point in the game, the Patriots offense has really not been Patriots missed that field goal.
Yeah,
I think it was. They scored after the field goal. So the second quarter, they give a touchdown right at the start of it, but it's 3 and out, drive before the half where they can't do anything with it, drive where they can only get one first down, drive where they can only get one first down, and then they fumble it. And in that, the Titans have scored to tie it up. And the Titans were tough. They were physical. They were resilient. And at this point, late in the third, when you're given immediately after they tied it, you're given the Titans good field position off of a fumble there midfield. You can feel the momentum starting to go against you. You know that you got to buckle up. And this game definitely happening faster than the first one did. Fewer possessions, slower game. The game itself is slower. They're running more. Players are moving slower, so the clock's moving faster on it. And it's like, oh man, it's the end of the third quarter, and we might be about to be behind, depending on what the Titans are able to do on this possession. Yeah,
no, it's a great point, right? And the Titans try a trick play on the first play of the drive. They throw it behind the line of scrimmage to Frank Wycheck, who of course had the miracle in Miami in 1999, so has thrown passes before.
Yep, and this was his last NFL game right there.
Yep. Willie reads it absolutely perfect. flies in and, sacks him for a 10-yard loss. It's not really a sack, but, it goes down as a sack. Titans can't do anything with it, and they punt the ball back to the Patriots. Now, the Patriots have a decently long extended drive here. They just can't. They get to 3rd and 5, and they just can't convert, unfortunately. And I think they tried one of those weird, actually, no, I think Brady doesn't have anyone open and tries to scramble at the middle, gets tackled behind by Albert Hainsworth, actually, interestingly enough. And so the Patriots punt, Tennessee punts, and the Patriots get the ball, and they go on a nice drive here. And this is where they kick the field goal to take the lead. Brady on 3rd and 8, and again, here he is again. Brady on 3rd and 8 is getting absolutely destroyed in the pocket as he's throwing it. And maybe he leaves it a little bit too long for Daniel Graham, but the ball's right there in his hands. And he's got to kind of extend for it. And he jumps, I guess, but it's a pretty routine NFL catch.
Yeah.
And he just drops it. And you're just like, my God, man. You're at the 10-yard line. Just catch the freaking ball.
And then I think you go back here, you look at game situation. You look at how quickly this fourth quarter goes. Because the Patriots start the fourth quarter with the ball, and they drive within the Tennessee 40-yard line. Takes about 5 minutes off the clock.
Yep.
And they're able to pin Tennessee deep. And the Titans don't get past their own 17. They get one first down in there. Or they end up getting to their own 20, and then William McGinnis gets a sack in there. So you're able to force that 3rd and long. And by the time the Titans are putting the ball back to you, there's less than 7 minutes left in this game. And I do think this is where the good, you look at complementary situational football. This stretch, I think, is huge after the fumble. Because after the fumble, it's William McGinnis blowing up a play. You're able to get a stop. You drive. Even if you can't score, you're still able to pin them deep. And the defense is able to capitalize on that and stop them so that you get good field position. And then their punter, Craig Hentrich, who's also one of their kickers. He was their long distance field goal kicker.
Yeah.
Poor punt for him. Troy Brown gets a return. So then when you're getting the ball back with less than 7 minutes left, you're in Titans territory. It's at the Tennessee 40, which on a night like that is still 15 yards. Feels like out of field goal range.
Well, yeah.
But you're almost there. And the fact that you're, I think, able to play that complementary football and then, run the clock down, by the time you get to that play where Brady makes a ridiculous throw to Daniel Graham and he drops it, it's 4:17 left in the game. Yeah. So, you have totally killed most of this fourth quarter at that point. And, man, you look at that play. If Daniel Graham catches that, the Patriots are inside the Tennessee 15-yard line, and they're able to take another 2 minutes off the clock. So you're probably able to get this down to just about the 2-minute warning if you're not getting into the end zone, which, doesn't change the result here, but it does change how that next drive plays out. But they do get to the 27, and then Vinatieri.
This is I just look. We all know my opinion on Adam Vinatieri. I think he's the greatest field goal kicker of all time. Mm-hmm. And this is why, in my opinion, he is, because he's had a crap year. He missed a 44-yard field goal so bad in this game already that you're just what the hell was that? And this is going the same end, and now he's 2 yards deeper. And you're just there's just no way he's going to hit it. And he hits it, and when I tell you, you got to go, if you haven't seen it, you got to go back and watch. I know, Matt, you've seen it. If you haven't seen it, you got to go back and watch it again, boys and girls out there, because he hit it by a yard, and he put it at the lower left hand. If it meets here, he put it right in that
a yard
spot.
2 yards shorter or 2 yards further left, and it's no good.
Exactly right,
inching through.
Yeah. Anybody hit it, and it's one of those things, and I think that that for me is why Adam is the GOAT. And so he came through in those moments. Now the Patriots do that with about 4 minutes left to go in the game, and the Titans get the ball back down 3, and they do what they have done the entire game, which is every time the Patriots score, every time the Patriots look to try to extend the lead, they fight back. And And they do that. They start with an 11-yard pass on first down, and then Drew Bennett makes,
who was really good, and then
my
God.
Drew Bennett makes an outrageous catch over, I believe it was over Tyrone Poole, just completely mossed him, going out of bounds. The Patriots challenge it, lose the challenge. It was a ridiculous catch.
It reminds me of the Julio Jones Super Bowl catch against the Patriots in Super Bowl 51. Similar, over a defender while tapping your toes, going out of bounds.
Jones was like behind him. It was more the pass than it was this one. He went over the top of Tyrone Poole and caught. Obviously, the Jones catch is outrageous, but this one he went over the top of Tyrone Poole, as opposed to the ball getting past Poole on its own. You know what I mean?
So on the first two plays of this drive, Titans get 11 and 13 yards. So suddenly, still 3 minutes left in this game, and they are at midfield. And then McNair takes off as a runner, which I actually think McNair picks up 12 yards on this next play. And I also think this is why the Titans lose the game. Steve McNair takes off on a run, which he was very good. I mean, it's big picture. I thought, despite how low scoring this game was, I thought the quarterback play on both sides was exceptional. The defenses were just that good,
right?
And the conditions, no one could separate in the passing game. But he runs for 12 yards and he gets slammed at the end of this run. It is a physical contact. Steve McNair's a big dude. He runs full speed and lowers that shoulder to pick up the first down. So the Titans get to the Patriots' 40-yard line on that. 2.5 minutes to go, real chance. But Steve McNair is a little bit coming up a little bit limp after that one.
Yep. No, it's totally true. And then, he completes a 7-yard pass. Now you're looking at 2nd and 3, and you're thinking, we're in a good spot here. 2nd and 3, we're in a good spot. And he gets called for intentional grounding on a throw, to Derek Mason. Not really to Derek Mason, but in a throw to Derek Mason.
Well, and I think what happens here, the genius of Belichick too, the play before it, they get a completion, but that takes, I think, down to the 2-minute warning.
Yep.
And McNair is hobbled when they're during that timeout, and the Patriots realize it. And I think every single play from here on out for the rest of the game on defense is an all-out blitz. They are bringing the house every time because they're saying, we don't think you can move back there. We're going to make you beat us by throwing it fast and making a decision. So he makes a decision fast there, which is an intentional grounding penalty. And now you're going backwards.
Not ideal. Right. And then the next play.
And it's lost it down. So it was 3rd and 13 after that.
Correct. So then the next play, he completes a pass to Drew Bennett, except he doesn't actually complete a pass to Drew Bennett because it's an offensive holding call. So now it goes from 2nd and 3 to 3rd and 23. And McNair completes a pass to Drew Bennett, great on the sideline, gets out of bounds.
Another really nice catch that
replay.
They did review it. They did not need to. It was
not at all. It was very clear it was a catch. I don't know why they reviewed that one.
Yeah, I just want to have a gripe here because there's 2 reviews on this because the Patriots challenged the Bennett catch before. Yep. I thought both of these you could tell on one replay that's a catch. I don't know why it took them so long. Like the first review takes like 4 or 5 minutes, and I don't know why it took that long.
This is what happened in the early days of instant replay, where it just like no matter what, it took forever. It still happens. You're right. It still happens. But I will say it's better in the fact that if they have a question, like the second one would have never happened because New York would have just been like, "No, we're good. Don't worry about it. Just go." So that part of it at least is good. So anyway, so we get the 4th and 12 and all up blitz again. Rodney gets in untouched because one guy's going to be untouched, and it ends up being Rodney. Bruschi shows the blitz early, so they pick Bruschi up, and Rodney comes in untouched. And McNair just floats it up in the air, throws it a mile up in the air.
Heaves it.
Yeah. And Drew Bennett gets open. He's open, right? He's open. He boxes out not Asante, Tyrone Poole. Jumps up for the catch and just bobbles it. Just doesn't catch it clean. And by the time he tries to, grab it again, Asante and Eugene Wilson are in his face. His ball ends up falling.
Asante
the Patriots win.
Asante makes a great play on that to come over and hit him and knock the ball away all at once.
Yes. Yeah, he made a nice play on it. Eugene Wilson was there a little bit later as well, right? Kind of at that same time. But if Bennett makes a clean catch on that, if he catches it clean the first time, he probably comes down with that. Now he's getting hit,
Yes.
and maybe Asante gets his hand in there and knocks it away anyways. But if he catches that thing clean, there's a good chance that he holds on to that football.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, there's still 145 left to go in the game, right? Like,
and they're in field goal range then if he catches that.
100%, and you're tying that football game up, if not winning that football game. And so, could have ended a lot differently if he holds on to that. And then, of course, you end up with an interesting situation for the Patriots because, they take a knee, or, well, I guess they don't technically take a knee. Antoine Smith runs it. The Titans call the third timeout. So the Patriots take 2 knees, but there's not enough time left, right? He takes the third knee or he takes the second knee, I'm sorry, with 50 seconds left. And so there's 3 seconds left when they call their last timeout, and it's 4th and 15.
Which, what's funny about this is that because of the time difference, like Brady's trying to milk it on one of these kneel downs. He takes like 3 or 4 seconds, and then he gets hit. Rarely do you see, Tom Brady kneels from under 3 yards, and then in parentheses tackle. Kevin Carter for the Titans, which starts a little scuffle. Scuffles after both kneel downs here.
Yeah, didn't go over well. Go over well. But in the next play, Brady just kind of rears back and chucks it deep. In the vicinity of David Givens, because what you can't do in that situation is take an intentional grounding, because I believe, and I'm not 100% on this, I believe if it's an intentional grounding in the last play, that the Titans would get the ball back, because technically it'd be a loss of downs. I don't know for sure, but I think that's seems like it's right. I don't know. Either way, it was an intentional grounding. Game ends, but it's just kind of interesting that it doesn't end on a kneel down and ends on a deep incompletion of David Givens.
Yeah.
So
I do wonder why, like, I just looking at it, 3 seconds left and you need to kill it. I wonder why teams don't have, like, if I was a coach, I feel like I put a play in where it's like, we're going to practice snapping the ball to like our fastest guy who we trust with the football. And then we're just going to have him run around until the clock is out. And then go down.
Which you could certainly do.
Just have him run, especially if you're on 37, just run backwards 20 yards. And then go down at your own 5. You have to ask for someone to take a negative 20 rushing yards on their stat total, which
also
a lot of players might not want to. But like, you look at the modern Patriots, more modern. Like, you ask Matthew Slater to do that, he's doing that. And I think
100%
with the ball, and he's fast.
That'd be a fun little stat in there too. Like Matthew Slater, negative 20 rushing yards. You're like, wait, well, how'd that happen? You're like, oh yeah. So, but yes, the Patriots sneak out of this one. I can tell you one of the fun things about this game. I remember this vividly. After the game ended, wearing my buddy Dino Susi, which he's about as Italian as you can get. He had a tent outside, and he had one of those like propane heaters in the tent, and it was so warm inside the tent. I actually took my boots off. And I remember walking through the parking lot without boots on. It's like negative 10 degrees out, right? And I'm walking through the parking lot after the game with no shoes on. With my, I have heated socks on, but still, it was so warm in the tent that I was like sweating. So it was a lot of fun. That was a heck of a night. That was a fun night.
Yeah. So the Patriots advanced there. Their first playoff game at Gillette Stadium. They started off with a win. We look to the rest of the divisional round here. Once they win that, AFC Championship is going to be in Foxborough, and the Panthers are, going to be in the NFC Championship. You just don't know who they're playing yet, whether it's the Eagles or the Packers. Jump ahead to the next Sunday, 1:00 is Chiefs Colts at Arrowhead. One of the all-time great Peyton Manning games here. The Colts there are no punts in this game at all. Colts win 38-31. The Colts start this game with touchdown, and then a drive to kill the clock at the end of the first half. Second half, field goal, touchdown, and then a drive to kill the end of the game that ends with 8 seconds left and a turnover on downs.
Insane.
They have essentially 6 real possessions in this game where the goal is to score, and they score on every single one of them. Chiefs have a missed field goal and a fumble in there. They didn't punt either. They're scoring on everything else too. But nuts game, and the Chiefs end up the Colts end up going up by 2 scores early in the second half, and then they just kind of bounces back between a 14-point game and a 7-point lead for the rest of the game, as the Colts close that out. So big win. That cements that the Colts are going to be coming to Gillette the next weekend for the AFC Championship game.
By the way, what's interesting about the fumble is that it's the second play after the half.
Mm-hmm.
And, at this point, it's 21-10 Indy. And Priest Holmes I believe, goes right up the middle. I believe. He gets a carry, goes right up the middle for 50 yards. I mean, he's gone. And then he gets tackled at inside the 25 and fumbles. And that could have changed the trajectory of the game there because, all of a sudden it's 21-17. And yeah, okay, they kick a field goal or whatever to make it 24-17, but the Chiefs, like you said, didn't really punt either. So you look at that and say, man, if that fumble turns into a touchdown, it's a totally different game. And so, huge play. And I think it was David Macklin that had it. I thought it was Nick Harper, but it was David Macklin. So, but either way, a great play by Macklin to get that ball out and really, I wouldn't say win the game necessarily for the Colts because that didn't win them the game, but obviously would have changed the game significantly if he had scored there.
And the other game on Sunday, Packers at Eagles. This is another legendary game. You're thinking this is Donovan McNabb against Brett Favre. It kind of ends up being Ahman Green, the Packers running back, against McNabb. McNabb has 248 passing yards and then 107 rushing yards. And then Brett Favre has 180 passing yards. Ahman Green, 156 rushing yards.
Mm-hmm.
So that was Packers end up with a 17-14 lead late in this ball game. Eagles are backed up 4th and 26 with a minute and 12 seconds left in this game, down by 3. And Donovan McNabb finds Freddie Mitchell, and he just barely gets the first down on this one. They go down. They tie this game with a field goal with 10 seconds left. It goes to overtime. And then Brett Favre ends up throwing a pick to Brian Dawkins in overtime. Eagles move down the field and win it on a field goal in less than 5 minutes into the extra period there. So the NFC Championship will be at the Link. The third straight NFC Championship game appearance for the Eagles against the Panthers. And then that sets up our Championship Sunday.
Yeah, sure does. By the way, interestingly enough, 2 things. Number 1, Brett Favre interception in overtime in the playoffs. Thanks a lot.
See that later in his career.
Lost us the 07 Super Bowl because I still say we would have stomped the Packers if we had played the Packers in the 07 Super Bowl.
When that's something you see, 9, not in overtime, but at the end of regulation. I think when he's with the Vikings down in New Orleans, they're in field goal range. He's trying to get more yards. He throws across his body and it gets picked.
Stupid, incredibly stupid.
That's Brett Favre. You live 100%. And die with him. And
also, interestingly enough, 4th and 26. There's the famous Michael Vick 4th and 26 against the Packers in their, I believe it was their first ever home. Maybe not their first. I think it was their first ever home loss in the playoffs. Michael Vick for the Falcons, 4th and 26.
Which I think might have been Vick's first playoff game too.
I think it might have been. Yeah. It was.
That was back when the Falcons wore those uniforms with the silver pants and the red socks. Which I always loved. Those are so cool.
Anyways, just a few interesting notes that I thought were fascinating.
Yep. So in both championship games here end up being the number 3 seed from the South against the number 1 seed from the East.
Oh boy.
Yep.
Wait, say that again. End up being what?
Oh. It's the number 3
from the
seed.
South and someone from the East. Got it.
Yeah, and it's 3 versus 1 for both of these.
Yeah,
but we're gonna get different results. And,
yes, we are.
So the ad read?
Yeah, quick break here. Of course, we're going to talk about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash with millions of members. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000. That's right. I said 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Now, basketball might be over, but that doesn't mean that this is over. Okay? There's still baseball. There's still women's basketball going on. There's still esports always going on as well. And of course, you can set your lineup with as many different sports as you would like. And that's one of the great things about Prize Picks is you can set your lineup with those different players. And I like doing that because who wants to watch just one sport? Let's watch multiple sports, right? And so, again, Prize Picks does offer Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account and out of your account all sports season. What you're going to do, download the app Prize Picks, put in the promo code CLNS, and when you play your first $5 lineup, you'll get $50 back instantly. Once again, you don't have to win your $5 lineup, you just got to play. So, download the app Prize Picks, put in the promo code CLNS, and you will get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right.
Time for the AFC Championship. By the way, I'll just put this note out there right now. We have a heat wave in New York City, and apparently in my neighborhood there are already some power outages with there being issues. So on top of the Wi-Fi issues, if I drop randomly, that might be why.
I'll be flying solo here, boys and girls, but that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah, if it comes out, hopefully the light stays with us. We're on to the AFC Championship game. The first AFC Championship game at Gillette Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Opening up that Patriots.
Yeah, well, it was obviously not the first time they've hosted an AFC Championship game, but the first time they've hosted it at Gillette Stadium. The last time they hosted an AFC Championship game, by the way, the lights went out while they were playing. Speaking of the lights going out, the lights went out while they were playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. I believe as Adam Vinatieri was lining up to kick a field goal. So that was interesting.
Yeah, crazy game there. Patriots hosting Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, we've talked about their regular season matchup on the series already. That comes down to the wire in an absolute instant classic. This one, 3 o'clock start time at Gillette. Not as cold as the game before, but you're going to get snow in this one. Still below freezing. The Patriots were favored over the Titans by 6. They're favored over the Colts by 3.5 here. So, expect it to be a close game. Just like the first meeting between these two teams, this starts in similar fashion. Patriots score in their first possession. Patriots force a turnover on the Colts' first possession. Patriots add another score and go up 2 scores early in the game. Situational football once again. They basically end up paper cutting the Colts to death with field goals. 5 field goals from Vinatieri, plenty of self-inflicted wounds from the Colts, and this game is fun to watch. I forgot how hilarious this game is to watch at some points and how ridiculous it gets. But the first Brady victory over Manning in the playoffs, first Belichick victory over Manning in the playoffs, Belichick continuing to have Peyton Manning's number defensively. The Colts team that came into this game having not punted once in the playoffs so far in their 2 games. They punt twice in this one, but the first one does not exactly go as planned.
Well, so here's what's interesting, right? The Colts come into this having 2 straight games of not punting once, and they go into halftime still not having punted in the playoffs, but not scoring a point, which is pretty tough to do. To not score, to not punt and not score is pretty wild. And they had figured that out. This was the birth of the Manning phase. It was also my favorite Peyton Manning is when he's doing this. When he's walking out, going, what happened? What am I doing? And this is that's the Belichick thing where Manning's got his hands up in the air like, I thought it was here. I thought I was doing this. And then that guy was over there. And this guy's supposed to be there, but then he wasn't here. And how did he pick that off? And it confused the hell out of him all night long. And just an absolutely incredible thing to see. It's unbelievable.
And I think these 2 games, we think of Bill Belichick now. We think about a lot of the exotic man defenses that he brings later in his career. In these playoffs, they play plenty of man against the Titans, but especially this game against the Colts. It's a lot of zone. It's zone blitz. It's going to be a variety of zone blitzes. They're going to bring everyone. You don't know when it's coming. You don't know where it's coming, but it's going to come. And they just have great coverage on the back end consistently with it, great tackling. And it's just like if you were going to score on them, you were going to have a very long, very disciplined drive to do it. And they're going to say, you know what, we'll give you those 5-yard chunks, those 3-yard plays. You're not going to get big plays on us. And eventually you're going to make a mistake. And that happened all night long. 5 turnovers for the Colts on that Sunday afternoon. A rough game from Peyton Manning.
Absolutely. Well, and it's funny. On a personal note, of course, I'm at the game. My dad says to me before the game, like, the Colts are not scoring on their first drive. I know they haven't punted, but he's like, they're not scoring on the first drive. So Patriots drive down. By the way, the first 3 Patriots drives, 13 plays for 65 yards, 13 plays for 67 yards, and 11 plays for 52 yards. Now, those second 2 were both field goal drives, but you talk about long, extended drives, taking up a ton of time, killing the clock. It's just awesome. Great play with that. I feel like they did that quick pass a ton at the line of scrimmage, and they fake it to Givens on the first play. Colts guy bites way up, and Givens just runs right by him and score is wide open in the end zone by himself.
I want to go through this first drive real quick because it's so interesting. It's the whole drive. A lot of it ends up being the Patriots like passing to set up the run. The game plan is very similar to what they did against the Bills to open that one too, where they're spreading them out. They have an actual 5 wide receiver package to start this game. It's like, I don't know the last time I saw an NFL team go under center 5 wide receivers on the field. That's just not something you ever see. They go with that on the first drive points, and it is just, death by 1,000 paper cuts. There's only one play longer than 10 yards on the first drive. Brady is ruthlessly efficient. I think the 2 big plays, QB sneak on 4th and 1 at midfield. Which is also, we talk about 4th down decision making and all that today, and this is another example to me of like, I kind of preferred the way they talked about it then. I don't know what the math would say about going for it on 4th and 1 at midfield on your opening drive, like your first set of downs in this game.
Right.
But the Patriots had a plan, and they came out with confidence, and like they did that because they thought they could get it, and it's entertaining and it was fun. And I thought the broadcast kind of met the moment there, which is fun. Brady gets the sneak. They get to a 3rd and 5 after, which is the biggest play of the drive. Brady hits Branch for 14 yards on that one. Great play, which I think another thing you see in this game, although like we talk about why, like the Brady Manning rivalry, why Manning struggled. You see Brady being better than Manning in this game, I think in large part because Brady was able to create plays out of structure and use his athleticism in ways that Peyton could not do. When plays were breaking down for the Patriots, Brady was able to make something happen. There's a number of plays where he's got pressure in his face in this one, and he's able to get a throw through to someone with that arm. And Peyton was melting down. When the pressure came, he was either getting sacked, which the Patriots get 7 sacks between these 2 games in the AFC side of the playoffs, or he was throwing a pick. He wasn't accurate with the ball at all. And Brady has a couple near misses with picks throughout this game, but I just thought Brady was far and away the better athlete. In a way that stood out in poor conditions.
I completely agree. Couldn't agree with you more. So they do, to your point, they pick up 2 third downs. They pick up a 4th down on this drive, and they score a touchdown. Now the Colts walk right down the field, and I mean right down the field. Edgerrin James, 34 yards rushing, a few completions by Peyton Manning, and then 3rd and 3 at the 5, and Marcus Pollard's wide open in the end zone. I mean, wide open in the end zone. And they just confuse Manning. He's not sure what he's looking at. Doesn't see Harrison coming, and he leads Pollard into the middle of the end zone instead of throwing it where he was. Turns into an interception in the end zone by Rodney Harrison. And that's what sets this in motion. The Patriots then respond to that by having that long drive. Ends up in a Vinatieri field goal. Right? And so anyways, keep going.
No, I want to go about that first drive too. That was the 5th straight game where the Patriots scored a touchdown, I believe, on their opening possession. So they have the touchdown to Daniel Graham against the Jaguars, the one down the sideline to Givens against the Jets. I forget who it was who scores against the Bills, but they scored right away in that one. That might have been Graham as well in the end zone. I think you're right. Yeah. And then they score with the long pass to Bethel Johnson the game before this, and they go down to Givens. this stretch. This is the first time all year the Patriots offense is healthy when they get into December. And I think for the first time they actually find their rhythm. Like I think when you talk about this Patriots team, what their offense was good at, it was asking Brady to do a lot and then using that to set up draws. They were very good on the draw in this game, which will come up in the second half. Very good with the screen game, which you see all year. And then some of the play action stuff off of that. But finally having the receivers healthy and some consistency, they really get into a groove here. Even though it's only 17 points against Tennessee and only 24 points in this game, you still feel like the offense played pretty well relative to the conditions and the defense that's across from you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So,
Yep.
Patriots pick him off. As I said, they go on that 13-play drive, ends in a field goal. Actually, almost didn't end in a field goal because Brady should have been picked off by Nick Harper, Pittsburgh's favorite Colt, Nick Harper, and wasn't, of course. And so the Patriots kick a field goal. And again, Adam, who had struggled, and you mentioned it. Yeah, he had struggled all season long. He had the 46-yard winner the week before. He goes 5 for 5 in snowy conditions in Gillette. And you're just like, that's why he is who he is, right? And so anyways, he hits the first of those. The next play, the very next play, Manning throws a pick to Ty Law. And this is such a good interception, man. Comes off of his guy, undercuts the route, one-handed pick. Just incredible. And Ty is one of the best cover corners in NFL history, but he really had Manning's number. And he does, he does it here as well.
And I think the consistent theme of a lot of these picks too is that Manning's under pressure in some way, and he's looking at a receiver who is running away from a defender into what he thinks is space and throwing the ball to that space.
Yep.
And there's just a Patriots defender there coming from the backside that he never sees. That's Rodney Harrison on the first one, with Manning trying to lead Pollard in the end zone. He leads him right into coverage. And then that happens, again here where he doesn't see the Ty Law's dropping underneath this. This is something that Patriots defense was so good at all year. I feel like so many of the picks that they got were it's either linebackers undercutting things or guys coming from the backside of a play to pick something off. And excellent zone coverage and excellent, defensive line and coverage working together. It's that whole thing of like, if you want to force quarterbacks to make bad decisions, you have to get the pressure on them, speed them up, make them feel like I got to do something here, and then just really good coverage on the back end to punish it when they make the wrong call.
100%. Yep. So Patriots drive down and kick another field goal here. They have a super, super ballsy 4th and 8 call where he completes a nice pass to Troy Brown for the first down. And Dungy's screaming about he pushed off or whatever, which he did not. But
he did not.
It was super clear that he was a clean play and he didn't do it. But nevertheless, and one of the things that I think becomes apparent with the Patriots offense, and this is, they've started out strong. They're up 13-0. You're feeling good. They've had 3 long drives that have taken a lot of time off the clock. They've been able to move the ball pretty well. They're 4 out of 5, now 4 out of 6 on 3rd down, and you're feeling like, all right, this is good. They finished 5 out of 15 on 3rd down, right? Which means they only convert 1 more 3rd down the rest of the game. In the second half of this game, the Patriots are 0 on 3rd down. They do not convert a 3rd down in the second half of this game. Now, thankfully, the defense continues to play incredible against the Colts offense, but the Patriots offense goes completely stagnant against the Colts defense. And listen, you got to give the Colts some credit here as well, but the Patriots offense can't do anything in the second half. And by the end of the game, we'll get to it, but by the end of the game, it feels like they're just like hanging on. You know what I mean? It's pretty wild how close this game gets.
Which is fun. Like, that is something you see. And I think if you want to make the comparison of the difference between the 0-3 team and the 0-4 team, the 0-3 team at points is like great ball for 1 or 2 quarters, getting a lead and then hanging on to it. You go back, obviously that happens in the Colts game in the regular season, but like you look at the end, the Jets game, that ends up being a 5-point game. because the Jets are able to do enough, and they have the ball at the end. How many games were like that, where it's like, either the Patriots have a really good fourth quarter to come back into it, or they have had a very good quarter somewhere before that, and they're trying to hang on, which we are going to see in the game after this in the Super Bowl as well. This was a theme all year long.
When it's pretty incredible that they were able to win 13 straight games in the season, right? Like, you talk about, well, I'm sorry, that's not true. They were able to win 15 straight games in the season, because you're just like, so many of these games were just like that, where they were just kind of hanging on. But their defense was just so incredibly good. So anyway, so the Patriots kick a field goal there.
I want to make one more comparison to the 2004 team, because the Patriots played the Colts in the playoffs in 2004, and that one ends up being the opposite. The Patriots control the first half, but it's only 6-3 then. And then in the second half, you get two long, sustained, dominant touchdown drives where they're able to finish with finishing with touchdowns is not something they could do in 2003 in this matchup. They do it in 2004. That game ends up being a little bit more of a blowout. A slightly bigger margin, but I think by feel that game is a bigger blowout the next year against arguably a better Colts team in some ways. So
I think so.
2003, this first half is basically the Patriots offense clicking to start like they did in both games against the Colts. A comedy of errors from Indy as they kind of get avalanched and fall behind by 2 scores, and then just never able to get over the hump. Do we want to talk about what happens on that next Colts possession after the Pats go up 13-0?
Yeah, Colts have to punt for the first time in the entire playoffs.
After a Jarvis Green sack, someone who's starting to come on here for them.
Yep. And the ball gets snapped over Hunter Smith's head. What's interesting is that the Colts actually get the ball. They get the ball to they're only at the 30-yard line, they get to the 35-yard line. They're not super far out, but they're not backed up super far. And they snap it right over Hunter Smith's head. He misses it. He's chasing it, and he just boosts it out of the back of the end zone for a safety. And now the Patriots are up 15-0. And you're like, okay, yep, and here we go.
And that's when it's kind of not the Colts' day at that point, because it's just for the Patriots, their first 3 possessions, it's score, score, score. And for the Colts, it's pick, safety.
Right. Yeah, not great. Not great, Bob. Patriots get the ball back, and you're feeling good about it, and then Bethel Johnson fumbles. And you're like, oh, all right, maybe this is what the Colts need. They're driving just outside the red zone. Manning hits Rodney Harrison hits Marvin Harrison on a slant, who is then hit by Rodney Harrison and fumbles, and the Patriots recover it. And then the Patriots take a few knees or run the ball a little bit or whatever, kill out the rest of the clock to end the first half. And it was that moment right there. That to me is kind of that big play at the end of the first half where you feel like the Colts can get some things going, because you feel like the Colts are a really good team. They're going to do something eventually, right? And so if that was that moment, that Bethel Johnson fumble, you feel like if they can go into the half down 15-7, all of a sudden they're feeling really good about themselves, right? And Rodney prevents them from doing that. So, and that's important because when they come out of the half, the Colts get the ball and they drive right down the field. They have a really nice, long, sustained drive. It starts off with a little bit of a return from Dominique Rhodes, which, by the way, I feel like the Patriots in both of these games had a little bit of a tough time with the kick returns. They did allow some long kick returns, not like super long kick returns, but they started at almost midfield here. It does take them a while, but they get down the field and they score. Eventually, Edgerrin James runs it in for a touchdown. And so now it's 15-7, and it's a one-score game. And as much as the Patriots dominated in the first half, they're up by 8 points, right? And it's like, oh, boy.
Yep, we're in business now. And I think the thing that's kind of shocking about that drive, one completion from Peyton Manning. And this is a game plan that we would see recycled by Bill Belichick against Peyton Manning later. Is we're just going to make you beat us on the ground. You're going to, and this is what got Bill into the Hall of Fame the first time. When his game plan goes in for his game plan against Jim Kelly in the Super Bowl and he's with the Giants, And when you're going against a great quarterback like that, you know that they want to throw the ball, so give them looks where they have to run. So it ends up being a touchdown drive for the Colts. It's basically all Edgerrin James with a little dose of Dominic Rhodes. And it's a touchdown drive. It also takes over 5 minutes off the clock, which is what the Patriots were trying to do. If you're going to score on us, you're going to have to take up all the clock, and you're going to have to execute play after play after play after play to get down the field. To their credit, they do, and they get back in the game, and the Patriots answer quickly. The next possession starts with 2 straight completions for a total of 45 yards to Larry Centers and Troy Brown.
Yep,
and
I love
Patriots
it.
Are back in business.
And Patrick Pass also has a nice kick return, which takes the ball to like the Patriots 40-yard line.
Yeah.
And so Patriots are back in business, as you said. They're not able to get the ball down to far. Actually, they're going to kick a field goal, and they don't get the ball. They don't get the ball off in time, which is interesting. You don't see that happen in time with the Patriots, but they get the ball off in time, and so they get pushed back 5 yards, and Adam kicks a 27-yard field goal, and now they're back up by 11, and you're feeling a little bit better about where they're at.
Yeah, in that sequence, I believe it's the sequence. Brady has a pass to Christian Fourier in the end zone that he can't corral. That was a really nice throw. Yeah, that's I think you look back at this game. The game ends up getting close. It's 5 field goals. The team can't convert in the red zone very often. And, part of that's the lack of the running game that they had. But a significant aspect of that's just guys can't catch the ball. Fourier has some drops. You talked about Daniel Graham with a drop in the divisional round. You see it all year. The guys around Brady not doing quite enough. He has to bail them out, which is crazy because this is his second full year as a starter.
I know. It's true. But then the next drive, the Colts get the ball back. Now they're down by 11, 3 and out. Hunter Smith just absolutely murders a punt, 55-yard, but outkicks his coverage. And so Troy Brown has a nice little 16-yard return. So the Patriots end up with decent, not great field position, but decent field position. And the very first play, Antoine Smith up the middle for 35 yards. The next play, Antoine Smith up the middle for 14 yards. And so you're looking at saying 49 yards on 2 plays from Antoine Smith. And
you're back in the red zone.
All of a sudden, we're right there. Right, we're right there.
And I think those 2 plays, I mentioned passing to set up the run. This is where that came in because Brady's able to throw it, and the Colts are trying to get after look at that drive beforehand. Starts with 2 passes, and Brady's able to get big gains on it. And the Colts are kind of anticipating that, and they are aggressive, flying out the field at Brady, and they call 2 trap plays. So that's one where you're trying to sucker a defensive tackle or whatever up the field, and you're blocking him from the side he's not expecting, and you're able to get a hole right up the middle, and they call it twice. And Colts have nothing for it, and that's right back in field goal range again. And Antoine Smith trying to go home to Houston, playing the Super Bowl in his home city.
Yep. And so anyway, so they end up getting stopped in the red zone. They give the ball to Antoine Smith twice. He can't get in. Brady throws a pass that I don't think was super close for Fourier. And then Adam kicks a field goal. So now they're up 21-7. Yeah. And you're like, okay, we're moving. Manning throws another pick. Ty Law picks off Manning again.
Well, gets sacked by McGinnis and then throws a pick. So
that's the thing. 2 plays, right? McGinnis gets a sack, which McGinnis sucked, really sucked in these playoffs. Like he had a really, really tough playoffs. Hard time for him. He only had 1 sack in this game, which what a bum. 3 sacks in the game before. The guy was an absolute monster. Jarvis Green had 2.5 in this game as well. So you just look at the pressure that they were able to apply onto Manning, and just he never looked comfortable. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, so McGinnis at the sack. And then on the very next play, Ty Law picks off Manning on a pass that just flat out threw it over Edgerrin James' head. Just flat out threw it over his head.
Yep.
He floated it, he lost it, and it gets picked off by Ty. Diving interception right on the sideline. Patriots move the ball. They get the ball moving. Now again, they were already at the Indy 30-yard line, and you're thinking we're up 21-7. 28-7, like this game's gonna be over, right? We're heading into the fourth quarter. This is great. He's got Christian Fourier open for a touchdown. Fourier drops it again. Thanks a lot, Fourier. Drops it again. And now you're thinking, oh God, all right, 3rd and 3, like we're okay. Just don't throw an interception. And Brady gets picked off in the end zone. Denver throw the pass to Dietrich Ward of all people.
Yeah, he had a nice catch earlier in this game, right? In the Titans game, he has a big catch.
Yes.
Yeah. Which, side note, I was looking up Dietrich Ward because he is someone I've known because he's on the 3 team and he makes a couple plays. I didn't know anything about his history.
He played for the Jets
It's really funny to look at who he ends up with because he's drafted by Bill Parcells with the Jets. He plays with the Jets. And then he goes, I think, to Miami, where they had to play against the Jets, so it's familiarity. Yep. And then he ends up in New England with Belichick, who had him when they were on the same team there in New York with the Jets.
Yep.
Briefly ended up in Baltimore, then back in New England. And then I believe the next year, he ends up in Dallas with Bill Parcells.
Yep.
Yeah. Funny, that you still see that type of player movement in the NFL today too, where it's just like, coach knows the player, knows he can get out of him. They drafted him in for the Jets because Parcells compared him to Dave Meggett from the Patriots, athletically. But this is and I also we talk about Brady having to do the heavy lifting with this offense too. They get inside the 10-yard line for of the Indy here, top of the 4th quarter, and it's a throw to Givens to get down to the 3. Mm-hmm. And then from the 3, you're calling a throw to Christian Fourier, who can't catch it, even though he's open. And then from the 3 again, they're going 5 wide. They're not even threatening to run.
Right.
So they can't run the ball at all. Outside of those 2 big plays, they really didn't. Those were working off of other things that they had done. So when they get into this area, they can't run it. And it's Brady, I think, makes the right read and the right throw here. And Dietrich Ward just can't run a slant route correctly and lets the corner get underneath him. He's running a slant. He's going deep into the end zone with it, so the corner is able to get under and pick it. And that's the first and only interception Brady throws at home in the other preseason.
It's pretty wild. So the Colts respond with a really nice 5-minute drive. They drive all the way down. They get to the Patriots. They get inside the Patriots 30, all the way to the Patriots 23. And stop me if you've heard this before, Peyton Manning gets sacked again, which now forces them to a 4th and 13. And you're down 21-7. You're about halfway through the 4th quarter. You got no chance. You absolutely have to go for it on 4th and 13. I'm sorry. And what does he do? He gets picked off again by Ty Law again on a pass is underthrown because he's on the move because he got pressured again. It's just the same old story. Ty Law picks it and goes about, takes it back about 20 yards. Nice little return from Law.
And you go back on this drive to 2 massive hits by Eugene Wilson.
Absolutely.
Forced incompletions.
He's been suspended. He's been suspended for the rest of the season on those hits.
Oh, yeah. One of these over the middle to Brendan Stokely, and he lights him up. You talk about separating the player from the ball. He does it with authority on that one. And a couple of plays later, kind of an iconic throw to Reggie Wayne along the sideline. Ball goes off Wayne's head. Then Eugene Wilson goes off of Wayne's head, and he slams him into the ground. That hit would be very illegal today. Was probably illegal at the time as well, but they let it go.
You know what? What's funny is that Chris Sims actually spends time on that play discussing how it's not an illegal hit because, yes, he made contact with his head, but he hit his head with his shoulder and not his head, and so therefore it's not a penalty. So he actually goes into depth about why it was a legal hit, and of course you're watching it in 2025 and you're like, oh my god, dude, that's so illegal.
When Phil Simms is doing that, but then there's also a little bit of but he was still a defenseless receiver, and there was some of that. So that is
100%.
Even in 2003, if they flagged that and that's a 15-yard penalty, no one's surprised.
And he's also launching himself off the ground, jumping off the ground to hit him in the head. I mean, it's it was pretty dirty. But hey.
But
that was Eugene Wilson. That's the way he did it. Yep.
I don't know if you mentioned it, but there's also a Jarvis Green and Roman Pfeiffer combo sack in here.
Yes.
Nice hard hit.
That's what pushed them back to 4th and 13. To throw that interception. So, it's Patriots get the ball back now, and there's 8 minutes left, and you're feeling pretty good about where they're at. And they promptly go 3 and out. Now they do take 2 minutes off the clock, but they promptly go 3 and out. They get to 3rd and 1, and Falk actually loses 3 yards on 3rd down. Again, can't pick up a 3rd down in the 4th quarter or in the second half at all. They pick up 0 3rd downs in the second half. That's a big one because you feel like 6 minutes left, you can kill that clock down to about 4 minutes, and now you're up, 14 points with 4 minutes left to go in the game. You feel like that game's over, but they don't.
And that's back-to-back 3rd downs they have issues with there again because of the lack of a running game.
Yep.
You don't really at this point have a guy where it's like, all right, we need a yard, we can hand it to him, he'll get a yard.
100%. And the next drive, the Colts get the ball down, and they have a really nice sustained drive. They actually pick up a 4th and 8 here. Troy Walters makes a catch for the Colts, if you can believe that. And then Manning ends up throwing a touchdown pass to Marcus Pollard for a touchdown. Extra point. Now there's 2 minutes and 30 seconds left to go in the game. This before the 2-minute warning.
Yep.
Now they're down by 7.
Yep. And they're able to take, and this is what that Patriots defense was able to do, is that even though the Colts go down the field for a 67-yard touchdown drive to come within a score, you make them take almost 4 minutes off the clock in the process. You get a sack in there, and there's not a lot of. I think the longest play on this drive is 14 yards. Yeah, there's not just a chunk plays here. You're picking them up a little bit at a time, and you're keeping it in bounds. And you had a sack and things like that, so it's all right. Even though it's close, that you're only going to really have one opportunity after that to try to tie the game if you're the Colts. And when you go into that last drive for Indy, you're down by 2 scores with 6 minutes left. You would really like to get that touchdown before the 4-minute mark if you can. You're almost going 2-minute drive because you want to give yourself 2 chances after that to tie the game, depending on what happens. And Patriots defense does not let that happen.
100%. And listen, you're forced to kick an onside kick after that. I will say the Colts have all 3 timeouts and the 2-minute warning. So they have plenty of time, right?
Yes.
But it's like you got to stop them and
shot.
score, right? Like you only got one chance at it. The Patriots pick up a 1st down, it's over. And the Patriots, because as I may have mentioned before, they can't convert a 3rd down the entire second half, literally. The Patriots probably go 3 and out.
Yep.
And
with 2 incompletions in there too.
12 seconds off the clock and force the Colts to use 1 timeout. And so you're just like, my God, like not only do you pick up nothing from Antoine Smith on the first play, but then you throw 2 incompletions, and now you're punting back to the Colts, and they're getting the ball before the 2-minute warning with 2 timeouts left. And so, that just, it is what it is. So the Colts get the ball back. Manning throws 4 straight incomplete passes.
Which, hold on, I want to note before this, that was Ken Walter's first touchback on a punt since the Browns game in October, too. For all the issues with Ken Walter, he did not kick it far enough to get to the end zone most of the time.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So very, very rare situation for him to, most of the year in that spot, he has pinned the other team deep and not able to. It's still deep. Still, got to go 80 yards to tie the game. But,
but still,
you're hoping you're putting them inside the 10 there.
Correct. Yep. Doesn't. Manning throws 4 straight incompletions. Now the Patriots get the ball back. It's about 1:40 left.
That stretch of 4 straight incompletions, I think, is where the rules change stuff comes in for the following year, too.
Yeah.
Back-to-back throws intended for Marcus Pollard. Both of them, Roman Vipers really got a hand on them.
Yeah.
And no flag. Both of them would be called pass interference today. And I also think on both of them, fans would be complaining that it was called pass interference. Definitely a call, but one, if you're the team, you're like, let that go, let them play.
Right.
They let them play on this.
Yeah, they sure did. To the Patriots' benefit, for sure.
You get a couple of really good Peyton Manning, looking at the crowd with looking at the camera with his hands up, begging for a call on that one. And Dungy on the sideline, mad. The crowd's going nuts at that point.
Yeah. And then Patriots get the ball back at the 20. They don't pick up a 1st down. There is and I missed it on the broadcast just because I wasn't even looking. What did they review on that last drive?
So
did Brady fumble?
Yes. So this is kind of the brush with death in this game, if you will. is that it's 3rd and 6. We talked earlier on this podcast about how in the Cowboys game, when the Patriots are up 9 late, they call the naked bootleg with Brady running to try to pick it up on like 3rd and 5.
Right.
Similar spot on the field, up by 7 here. They call the same thing. And David Macklin is able to stick with Brady, so he doesn't get anywhere on the run. But on the tackle, the ball comes out, and the Colts grab the ball. And that's with about a minute left in this game. So the Colts still have – the Colts don't have any timeouts at that point. But there's a world where the Colts are getting the ball still deep in their own territory, still no timeouts, but maybe with a chance to tie it up before overtime.
Yep.
Yeah, but Brady's very clearly down on it. Patriots run the clock down to 55 seconds left, call their final timeout, and Vinatieri makes it a 2-score ball game.
Yep. And again, and Manning ends up, they complete a few passes or whatever, but that was pretty much it. They never really get past, they get a little bit past midfield, but don't get too far past midfield, and that ends up being the game. And they're up by 10 at that point. Anyways, they have no timeouts left. You figure the game's basically over.
Yeah.
And so, but again, it was a nail biter at the end of this game. It's 24-14, and Manning throws 4 picks, and they turn over 5 times, and they have a safety, and you're thinking, like, the Patriots must have killed them, and they really didn't. They only won by 10, and, it was a little hairy there at the end where you felt like the Colts have a good thing going in the second half, and the Patriots can't move the ball. And, you really felt like if this game kept going in overtime, if the Colts somehow tied it up, I don't know how confident I would. Now, listen, the Colts obviously would have had to go down and score another touchdown. So if they went down and scored again, you would have felt a lot better about it, right? And the Patriots obviously couldn't do that the whole second half. And so it certainly would have been a little nerve-wracking. Of course, that didn't happen, so you don't have to worry about that. But it is interesting to think about, like, it wasn't as big of a blowout as we kind of remember it as because of all the interceptions.
Yeah, and then the flip side of it is just, Christian Fourier catches 2 balls in the end zone in this one, and the Patriots are up by 8 extra points. This is a 30-14 type of game or whatever, and
right.
It is a blowout.
By the way, not just 8 extra points. They're up by 7. They're up by 11 extra points because Brady throws an interception after one of them. So
yeah, true.
So that makes a big difference.
Yeah. So yeah, that changed it, and it's funny because it ends up the yardage still ends up being relatively close, about 350 to 300. It's 349 to 306. Turnovers kind of tell the story, 5-2. But also so much of that yardage for the Colts comes in the second half or on that one drive to start the game where they go all the way down and can't score on it. So the Patriots really did control it. It is funny that both quarterbacks throw for the same number of yards, 237 yards each.
Yeah.
Just and 1 touchdown for each of them. 23 completions for Peyton, 22 for Tom. The difference there is the
4 interceptions.
What do you call it? The interceptions. And one play that stands out, we mentioned the completion of Troy Brown on 4th down. They go for it on 4th and 8. This to me was the play where it kind of clicked in my brain as to what Brady was really doing better than Manning in this one. It's 4th and 8. They're going for it. He is under pressure, fading away from the pass rush, trying to make a throw, and he is able to throw a laser. Like, it's an 18-yard completion.
Strike.
And he's like 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage, fading away. So this is basically like a 30-yard throw for him. Puts it on Troy Brown, reads it perfectly, like incredible stuff. And that was something Peyton was never able to do at any point in this game. There's no point where he's under pressure and he's able to really make a good play out of it. So, Brady was fantastic. I look into this season, and I really think the fact that this Patriots team had a good defense and the fact that there's that one combine photo of Tom Brady makes everyone forget just like how good he was at this point and how athletic of a player he was. 6'4" former catcher with long arms who can throw from like multiple arm slots and evade sacks and use his feet. And like, he's not that mobile, but he can break sacks and pick up a couple yards on the ground. And like, if we were talking about Tom Brady today, I think we would be talking about him in a different light. We'd be talking about him as a guy who's like he's very good. He's lifting this cast. I was curious. I pulled up by EPA per play and the success rate how Brady did that year, and then looked at quarterbacks last year to just see who was similar. By raw numbers, the guy who was most similar to him last year was actually Aaron Rodgers, which I think says a lot about the way offense has changed in the last 2 decades and how much better it is. But what you notice with Brady is that he is much higher ranked for EPA per play than success rate, which means he's able to create big plays, but the consistency is not there, which I think has to do with the supporting cast. Yeah. And when you look at a quarterback who has similar ranks right now, it's Justin Herbert. And I think there's somewhat of a valid comparison there of two guys who are pretty athletic, good at throwing the ball, who just didn't have the supporting cast around them. And the Chargers, they don't have the defense that the Patriots had, and obviously very far off from however many Hall of Famers are on that Patriots defense. But I don't know. I thought that was an interesting comparison to think of Brady like Justin Herbert.
Just kind of fascinating. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. If you dropped him in 2025, be like Justin Herbert. So
especially as a young quarterback too, that's
yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. This one turns out to be obviously a classic, and again is remembered because of the Ty Law 3 interceptions, and of course the next year the Patriots beat them, handily, and to me that one will always be remembered by the Teddy Bruschi play, right, where he rips the ball right out of Rhodes' hands, and I think that. So it's funny. It's just funny to see the two different ways that these two games are remembered. And of course, the Ty Law. I mean, he was a special player. So
the long arm of the law is I think how they refer to him. There's 2 lasting images from this game I always remember. One of them, it's David Givens after that first touchdown. That because of the snow and the wet field conditions, all of the field paint wasn't sticking. So David Givens right away, and this one lands in red paint somewhere on the field where they
covered in red paint.
The playoff. His whole right side's red.
Yeah.
And, the snowy field and the players with the paint on them, particularly Givens, and grass stains everywhere. It's just like an image that's burned into my head. And as a kid seeing that, it's this is what football was supposed to be.
Absolutely.
That's what it's about right there. And then the other image, a couple drives later, is when Peyton Manning gets sacked and he comes up. He just got a whole big clump of grass stuck in his face mask. It was just that kind of day for him.
Yeah. No, and that's when I see this game, I always think of the Rodney pick, and then the first 2 interceptions by Law, the one-handed catch and the diving sideline catch. Yeah, he was just so damn good in this game. And this defense, I think Sims talked about it ad nauseum, but he basically said, a few times, and it might have been during the Tennessee game and not during this game, but I can't remember because they did both games. But he talked about how Belichick had said, this is the best coverage unit I've ever had, which seems like pretty high praise for a guy that had coached, 40 years in the NFL at that point. And he just, they were incredible, all of them. And Rodney doesn't get the credit he deserves as a coverage guy because he was the enforcer, but he was a phenomenal coverage player. And even Eugene Wilson, who was, really just brought the boom, was a good coverage player as well, and Tyrone Poole, I think, struggled a little bit in 03. I think he had some difficulties. I feel like every time you kind of saw a big play happening, it was Tyrone Poole, which is funny for me that you didn't see them target him more because Ty Law was on the other side. But Tyrone Poole was a good coverage player in his own right as well. He just, he was the weakest link, I would say, out of those kind of 4 main players.
Well, I think he still led the team in picks that year. He had 4 or 5 picks.
Yeah, you might be right. Yeah.
Yeah, which he was a free agent signing of Belichick's, and amazing signing what he was able to do that year. Because he's the weak link in that secondary, and he has some tough moments, and it's also he is clearly playing at a high level all year long. And if he plays the way he did on most teams, he's going to be a corner 1 for most teams the way he played that year. He just gets asked to be corner 2 opposite Ty Law with Rodney Harrison and Eugene Wilson floating around behind him, and Asante there too. So, and Roman Pfeiffer, who's a great coverage backer.
Yep.
So it's quite a group there.
By the way, he did have 6 picks that year. Ty Law also had 6 picks that year as well.
Okay.
So he didn't lead the team, but he was tied for the team lead in interceptions. So good player, man. And that's the thing. Like, if he's the worst coverage guy in your secondary, you're doing all right, because he was a good player.
You're in good shape. Should we talk about the other championship game here real quick?
Yeah, let's get into that last championship game, and then we'll get the heck out of here.
Yeah. Later that night, Eagles favored by 4 over the upstart Carolina Panthers. Panthers come in and set the tone early with a 24-yard pass to Musa Muhammad from Jake Delhomme.
Mm-hmm.
So on the road, taking a 7-0 lead there. That was in the second quarter. Eagles end up making it 7-3 later in the half, but Donovan McNabb gets hurt during this one, and they just like the Patriots Colts game, it's the turnovers that end up being the difference maker here. Eagles outgained the Panthers 289 to 256, but lose the turnover battle 4-0 with 4 picks. I think McNabb had 3. Yeah, McNabb has 3. Yeah. I think Coy Detmer comes in as the backup, and he has 1 late. In the was it the 3 that McNabb threw? There's for Carolina, their corner Ricky Manning gets 3 picks in this one. He's a rookie. He ends up with 4 picks in the playoffs that year. So that was kind of one of the big storylines coming out over there, and kind of crazy to have 2 conference championship games that feature one defense coming out with 4 picks and one guy getting 3 of them. On one side, it's grizzled veteran Ty Law, and the other side, it's the rookie in Manning there.
What's interesting about Ricky Manning is that obviously lost the Super Bowl to this Patriots team, and then in 2006 was on that Chicago Bears 2006 defense. Had, I think, 5 or 6 picks for them, and then of course lost the Super Bowl to Peyton Manning. And so it's kind of an interesting thing for him that he made the Super Bowl twice, but was never able to win it, primarily because he played against Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. So, but yeah, no, it's the McNabb thing. I think if you look at it, it looked like McNabb got hurt kind of earlier in the game. Detmer comes in for a play or 2, and then just isn't able to really just play well the rest of the game, and ends up getting pulled at the end again for Detmer, just because he just couldn't do it. He was trying to tough it out, and he couldn't do it. And so that's what ends up happening there, and the Panthers win 14-3, and and again, he felt like for the Eagles to get there, that what's his name had to be perfect, that McNabb had to be great. He was great the week before. He was incredible the week before, right? And this game, he gets hurt, and he ends up with 100 yards passing, 0 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, and 10 yards rushing. And that's just like, for a team that was reliant on him, you couldn't survive with only that out of him. And so,
and that's their 3rd consecutive loss conference championship game too. Yeah. One, they go to St. Louis and end up losing that one.
Mm-hmm.
Which turns into a close game late. They're down. Actually, they're up in the second half. Rams score 3 straight touchdowns and kind of take over there. The next year, they get it at home. That's the one against that Tampa defense, and they only score 10 points at home, with Rondé Barber coming in and pick-sixing them. And that's at Veterans Stadium, and then this new one's at the Link, so that's the new stadium. Yeah. And still the bad luck, their offense can't get anything done, and then it's that offseason where they go get Terrell Owens, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's their response to that.
Yeah, and it paid off. I mean, of course, they ended up losing the Super Bowl, but paid off. By the way, my dad mentioned Ricky Prohl as well, who in a
We're
similar
gonna get to
situation with
him. Yeah.
yep, in a similar situation with Manning, loses to the Patriots in 01 with the Rams, loses to the Patriots again in 03 with the Panthers in a very similar situation for Ricky Prohl. And then actually ends up winning with Peyton Manning in 06 with Indy. Obviously, it already won with the Rams in '99, but kind of interesting that he was on that Indy team. I actually had forgotten he was on that Indy team, to be honest with you, until I looked it up. But
Yeah.
he was on that team, did play, and did get a ring. So
Yeah, good for him. Yeah, and this is, an interesting Super Bowl of two teams that people really did not think were going to be there. These were the unlikely teams. Patriots looking done at the start of the year.
yeah,
Panthers, nobody thought this Panthers team was going to be any good. It's a funny comment. Like it's Jake Delhomme with the two receivers there and a defense with Julius Peppers. But this is John Fox too when he finally breaks through. And
yeah. Well,
and this was in some ways the year of the underdog.
yeah, the interesting thing with the Panthers is that they start off pretty hot. They start off 6-1,
Yeah.
and then they get to 8-2, and you're thinking like, all right, this is good. And they lose 3 straight, and one of those losses actually coming to the Eagles. Where they lose 25-16 to the Eagles, and you're thinking like, all right, now you're 8-5, like, ooh, it's kind of like and they win their last 3 games, right? Against the Cardinals, the Lions, and then at the Giants. But at 8-5, you're sitting there saying like, man, this team may not even make the playoffs, right? If they lose these last 3 games, they might not even make it. Even if they win 1 out of 2 at 9-7, that might not be enough. And so, anyways, but they get there, and you're right. It was kind of a Super Bowl of underdogs. Maybe Patriots maybe aren't necessarily underdogs, but certainly unexpected.
Patriots were expected to win. Their line was 8.5 wins that year. Panthers were 7.5. So expected to be teams somewhere in the middle of the NFL.
Right.
Look at that Panthers run too. Well, obviously, we'll get more in depth later in the week when we talk about the Super Bowl. But back-to-back weeks, they lose to the Cowboys and the Eagles during the regular season, and to turn around and beat both in the playoffs. How often does that happen, where you lose to multiple teams you play in the playoffs and then beat them? I can't say I've really seen anything quite like that often. So, fun Panthers team.
Yeah.
And I do think, you compare and contrast this to the following year and what happens. And it's a Patriots team at that point that is a dynasty and really, runs through the league in a different way. Their 2 losses that year are on the road to the best team in the AFC when they're injured. And my camera just died. And
a fluke game down in Miami.
Yeah, on the against a division rival. So to go from with that team's dominant as the Eagles finally breaking through, very different ways I think you think about both of those years.
Yeah, agreed. All right, I think that's our cue, Matt, to get the heck out of here. We've been here way too long. But thank you for tuning in, everyone. We appreciate you as always. Thank you so much. And we'll be back. We'll be back on Thursday night. Mike was supposed to be with us tonight. Something happened. He actually wasn't feeling well, so he's going to be with us on Thursday night. I'll get back to you about the exact time when I know it. Also, before we go, congrats to the Oklahoma City Thunder for their win in Game 7. Kind of stinks. Tyrese Halliburton gets hurt, ruptures Achilles for sure in the first half.
First of all, I thought this is a very annoying Thunder championship that they won a Game 7 against Jokic that I'm not really sure if that was a weird game, and then this one where you're winning with Halliburton going out, you're the best team, you're the team that's not injured, but and then you obviously it's early, but you look forward to the East next year, and it's like, man, we know Giannis is leaving, KD is staying in the West, Tatum's missing all or most of the year, Halliburton's probably missing all of the year. If not, if he's coming back, it's not going to be earlier than the first playoff round.
Well, you would think if Tatum's going to miss the year, that Halliburton's going to miss the year too. They get the same injury.
Well, everyone's recovery ends up being different. And Halliburton's year happens a month later, but still, it's so. Who knows what the Eastern Conference is going to look like in the NBA next year, that's going to be
if
wild.
OKC can win the West, then it feels like there's not much resistance. So,
But
we'll see.
the flip side of that, I think, is for the Celtics. If Tatum can come back next year, even if it's just for the playoffs, you have to feel like your team can make a run.
Yep.
Even
Agreed.
if Tatum's at 80%, you have to feel like your team can make a run.
100%. Yeah. Crazy stat before we go from Ari Mirov here. Totally true. I did fact check him just to make sure he was right. Tyrese Halliburton finished Game 7 with the most 3-pointers made in the entire game. Nobody on either team made more 3-pointers than Tyrese Halliburton on Game 7.
That's crazy.
And he ruptured his Achilles and played, 10 minutes? It's just feels like when you look at it and Halliburton goes 3 for 4 from 3, he played 7 minutes. He went 3 for 4 from 3. They were leading at the half, and they just couldn't hold on to it. You feel like if Halliburton plays that whole game, they probably win. Maybe not.
Or at least it's going to be close.
Or at least it's close. Yeah, they're not getting blown out by 20 points in the second half or whatever. You know what I mean?
This game reminded me of Celtics Heat Game 7 in 2023. And the Celtics
Tatum gets hurt right away.
Tatum gets hurt, and it's like, oh man, just takes the air out of it.
Yep.
Credit to the Thunder. We've talked about in this series here, being resilient. Being able to stay healthy and paddle through injuries at points, like super important to winning.
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
So anyways, congrats to the Thunder. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll talk to you on Thursday night when we break down Super Bowl 38 and the first game of the 2024 regular season as well.
Colts again.
Yes, sir. So tune in for that, and we'll talk to you soon. Be good to each other, and go Pats.